Hey guys, how are y'all doing? I hope y'all are doing well. Today we're going to be talking about daily life in the Dark Ages. Now this is going to be a two-part video. It's a little bit lengthier than the other lessons we've done. So today we're going to be talking about homes, food, schools, and work. As you may have noticed by now, I like to teach history through the lives of famous people. But sometimes it's interesting to take a look at ordinary people and ordinary lives. Though their names may never be written down in a history book, these people are part of history too. Today we will focus on what common life was like in the Dark Ages of Europe, sometimes called the early Middle Ages and encompassing approximately the years 500 to 1000. Whatever you call the time period, it certainly wasn't an easy time to live. Homes. Ordinary homes were nothing like the lofty, beautiful castles that we associate with the Middle Ages, nor were they very comfortable. Ordinary homes were dark, damp, drafty, and made of wood. House fires broke out easily from these conditions because a fire was almost always lit for cooking, heating, and keeping flies away. Furniture was made of hardwood, mattresses were of prickly straw, and blankets were made of scratchy wool. And to make matters worse, most homes were used for stables too, or had stables attached nearby. That means the smell was awful. Cows, sheep, chickens, and even rats. Everyone shared the same roof if you didn't have much money. Ooh, that sounds yucky. Toilets were practically unheard of in poorer homes. People used buckets to collect their waste or just relieve themselves outdoors. Some nicer homes had restrooms in which the toilet was a seat built over a hole that allowed waste to fall below into another room. Though using a restroom was like a little more convenient than going outdoors, the lower room had to be shoveled out regularly, a most unpleasant chore. Food. The diet of an average person in the Dark Ages was rather bland and boring. A family would eat the same kinds of foods over and over. Bread was the main staple served morning, noon, and night. Bread was so important that if a baker sold moldy bread or if it weighed less than advertised, the baker was dragged through the city streets and punished for his crimes. Villagers would shout and throw things at him. Dinner might have been a soupy stew made with beans, vegetables, and bones. It was seasoned with garlic, peppers, and herbs. Wealthier people had meat, cheese, and eggs from time to time, but these were scarce for the common man. For drinking, milk and cold water were not very safe. It was better for people to drink a weak type of ale or beer. The ale contained alcohol that prevented the growth of germs. For special occasions, pies were very popular. The most creative kind were cleverly baked with live birds in it. When served, the birds would fly away unharmed. I don't know. Do you find that likely? A bird baked in an oven and served on a table, then the bird would fly out of the pie unharmed. I don't know how I feel about that. It is probably from this unusual custom that we have the nursery song, 4 and 20 blackbirds in a pie. Have any of y'all heard that nursery rhyme? If you haven't, maybe Google it. Schools. The opportunity to receive an education in Europe depended greatly on what kind of family you were born into and whether you were a boy or a girl. Girls from poor families would learn the skills of farming, cooking, storing food, and cleaning. They would learn most of this at home from their parents, especially from their mothers. Girls from wealthy homes would learn skills for taking care of a large household. This might include having a tutor to teach them math calculations and reading so they could help buy things for a large estate. They would also be trained in entertaining, dancing, singing, and sewing. Some wealthy girls were fortunate enough to learn to ride horses just for fun. Peasant boys learned how to farm as well as how to fight from their dads, uncles, or brothers. For the poor, formal school in a classroom was rare. Merchants' sons, however, might attend school in a village to learn reading and math for running a small business. Nobles' sons would probably receive better schooling through private tutors at home. It was probably a form of homeschooling. Work. About 80% of the population in Europe during the Dark Ages consisted of poor peasant farmers. The serfs were the lowest of these peasants. They were practically slaves in that they worked long, hard hours for a lord, a duke, or a count without receiving any pay at all. However, they did receive food, clothing, a house, and protection in exchange for their labor. If they were able to escape from their lord for a year and 1 day, they were considered free. Of course, escape was not an easy thing to do in a small community. Practically everyone knew everyone else, making it difficult to get away. Just above the serfs were the villains. It's not really spelled villains, but that's what I'm going to say. It's villains. Villains? I don't know. Villains. It's spelled Villeins. Villains. They were freer than the serfs and controlled a small plot of land to farm, but they didn't own it. Villains were expected to pay their landowners with food they grew themselves or animals they raised. It was terribly difficult to ever rise out of being a poor farmer. In fact, today's term, villain, which means a scoundrel or a person of poor manners, stems from this unfortunate class of people who were not widely respected. Some commoners who populated the towns were a bit more fortunate. Rather than toiling endless hours in the fields, they became merchants or craftsmen. It was common in the towns for a merchant to rent a 2-story dwelling from the nearest lord. The merchant and his family could live upstairs and work downstairs. These cozy shops and homes are still a common sight in Europe today. Since most people couldn't read or write, the merchant would hang a picture sign over the door of his shop to lure customers in. Walking through the town, one might see a picture of a sign of bread for the baker, shoes for the cobbler, a coat for the tailor, and more. As towns grew, so did the number of merchants and craftsmen. To protect themselves from being taken advantage of, these townspeople created guilds. A guild was a group of people who practiced the same trade, like that of being a silversmith, for example. But to become a part of a guild was a long ordeal. At about 7 years of age, a boy was trained as an apprentice to a master merchant or craftsman. An apprentice wasn't paid for his work, but was given food and lodging. If the apprentice was good and learned his skill, he could be promoted to journeyman. Fortunately, a journeyman was paid for his work. If approved by the guild, a journeyman could eventually open his own shop to sell his goods. If he was especially successful, he could then become a master of his trade. The cycle went on and on. Though conditions were often difficult, this system provided incentive for people to work hard and take pride in their goods and crafts. I would like to know what the class of people were, the ones that mentioned in the work section, and also what merchant or craftsman would you like to work under as an apprentice? I look forward to hearing your answers, and I'll see you next time.